A case study. Facebook and Google Plus should, in principle, be near-carbon copies of each other, populated by all the same users. Both offer customizable personal profiles or business pages. Both offer algorithmic connectivity to people you know, or maybe you should know. Both offer ways to store and share images, articles, videos, links, and other content. Both let you comment and tag people. Both offer methods of direct messaging, including video chats. In fact, really the only differences are terminology, whether you call them groups or communities, messages or hangouts, tags or plus mentions, likes or plus ones, and the parallelisms go on. Both have access to billions of potential users, and both are run by two of the most wealthy and influential tech companies in history. And yet, Facebook is one of the most successful social media sites, constantly growing into new arenas as they host more than 2 billion active users. Meanwhile, every few months there's another article published declaring the death of Google+, and it hangs around as a vestige of its former self, primarily servicing the mostly male, mostly young, mostly educated tech community. Why is that? The answers can be found in their origin stories. Facebook, as you may have heard, has its storied beginning in the dorm rooms of Harvard University. Now, alleged scandals aside, it essentially began as friends wanting to find friends. It was all about making connections around a shared history, and less about the efficient dissemination of information. As such, it ended up developing a culture that mimics a lot of schoolyard social dynamics. The tone is casual and familiar, and cliques quickly emerged. No, cliques. Alright, fine, we'll call them groups. But the most important thing is that you like what your friends are doing. And if you know what's good for you, algorithmically speaking, it's probably a good idea to stick together with those like-minded friends. Because as with all schoolyards, it wouldn't be long before bullying would become a widespread problem. Now, Google Plus, on the other hand, even though offering all the same functionality to all the same people, has a very different origin story. It started out as a tech mogul wanting to get in on the social media game and connect all its users together. It did this by corralling all Google account owners and product users and retrofitting them with a Google Plus profile. All they had to do was fill it with content. Then it started migrating its functionality over to Google Plus to encourage users to engage. This left it with an odd predicament. Usually, early adopters get the ball rolling behind the scenes, working out all the kinks and getting it ready for mass buy-in. But here, every Google user in the world had a front row seat to that awkward early adoption phase of this weird, almost Facebook thing that no one really understood yet. It was kind of like a kid going through puberty in public. Everyone looked on hesitantly as the early adopters began crafting Google Plus's culture. But these early adopters were not the everyday school kids of Facebook. They were the techies and Google aficionados who were all in simply because it had Google's name on it. Because of this, Google Plus quickly took on a much more technical feel. The most popular posts were almost always within the tech industry. In fact, a huge amount of Google Plus communities formed just around educating people on how to use Google Plus. It adopted the tech community's open source code of ethics about the free, but properly cited, exchange of scholarly and educational information. Now remember, these techies, who were the early adopters, were very often the very same nerds that were being bullied in the proverbial schoolyards of Facebook, not to mention the not-so-proverbial schoolyards of real life. So they inherently had an axe to grind with Facebook. And early on, they prioritized proper online etiquette within its culture. This is not just my perception, this is a real thing. It's called plustiquette. Trolling would be strictly discouraged, Moderators of communities served as ruthless gatekeepers, expelling transgressors and spewing such cutting retorts as "Go back to Facebook where you belong." Meanwhile, it becomes common practice to make sure to attribute sources with a hat tip and a plus mention. This scholarly attribution is even baked into the interface itself, with shared posts always retaining a direct link back to the original poster. It became a techie utopia, with room for other sorts of people too, I guess. But everyone watching uncomfortably just saw an increasingly complicated and unfamiliar niche culture emerging, and they felt their arms being twisted by the ever-monopolizing Google overlords to assimilate. So, when scolded to go back to Facebook where they belong, most people did. Google recognized this exodus and attempted a reboot. They streamlined their interface to be more like Instagram and Facebook. That seems to be too little too late. To this day, Google Plus remains a techie haven, and Facebook rules the playground. Try as they might to change their stripes, the divergent cultures of these two would-be twins was hardwired into them from the very beginning. But in the end, maybe it's for the best. After all, who needs a second Facebook? Perhaps some diversity, even in our online platforms, is a healthy and natural thing.